And so now we come to the official last episode of Season 2, which is Blood Feud. Written by George Meyer and directed by David Silverman. Now let me explain why this is technically the official last episode of Season 2, because the last episode aired in May of 91, early May. This one aired first on July 11th, 1991, and was part of the Season 2 production run, but was completed behind schedule. So Fox basically decided to use it as the part of their premiere week, in quotation marks if you will, because this was back in the time when Fox was still a relatively new, groundbreaking network, and they were doing things that the other networks didn't do. I mean, the previous year, they had launched this groundbreaking hit in Beverly Hills 90210 in the summertime, and so they basically decided to expand on that, airing new episodes of both that and The Simpsons, in hopes of expanding the normal 30-week primetime season and gaining new viewers for the fall. And although Three Men in the Comic Book was the original Season 2 finale, Blood Feud is considered part of the second season, and was included in the Season 2 DVD box set. So, what ended up happening with the result? What was the result for Fox, pretty much? Did pretty good numbers. Blood Feud finished 24th in the ratings that week, with a Nielsen rating of 10.8, and it was actually the second highest rated program on Fox after 90210, and that, of course, beating a rerun of The Cosby Show, which aired at the same time on NBC, which had a 10.3. Fox finished second overall that week with an average of 10.4 million people, which isn't bad considering the last episode was watched by 12.9 million viewers in May. So, in a way, the move did pay off for them, and it would be the first of 4 times during the course of the show's run that the series would have weird scheduling changes for new episodes, as we'll see with the end of Season 3, where they pull the same move off with Brother, Can You Spare 2 Dimes, which we'll get to later on in this month, September, but we'll get there when we get there. But let's talk about this episode in particular. In this episode, Mr. Burns falls ill and desperately needs a blood transfusion. Homer discovers Bart has Burns' rare blood type. Homer urges his son to donate some, promising that they will be handsomely rewarded. However, having received the blood, all Burns does is send the family a card. Enraged, Homer writes an insulting reply, but Marge convinces him at the last minute not to send it, but Bart unknowingly mails it anyway. Mr. Burns becomes furious and demands that Homer be beaten. Smithers calls off the beating, however, on the grounds that the action is no way to thank the man who saved Mr. Burns' life. And he, of course, convinces Burns to instead buy the family a present, but not just any present, an extravagant present.
An extravagant present, a mad, unthinkable, utterly impossible present, a frabulous, grabulous, zip-zoop, zabulous present.
According to David Silverman, he described this episode as one of his very favorite ones that he had the pleasure to direct. He also noted that several standard Homerisms appear for the first time in this one, such as Homer's conversations with his brain and his high-pitched fairy voice. Silverman inserted a red herring into the episode in which Mr. Burns says that he was rejuvenated. Silverman used a close-up of Burns when he said "blood of a young boy" in hopes of misleading viewers into thinking that the rest of this episode will be about Burns seeking more of Bart's blood. Also noteworthy about this episode is that it introduces the debut of the Olmec head, and after that episode, it was actually moved into the Simpsons' basement, and you've seen it several times later on down the road, although never in a major role. The design was partially based on real Olmec heads, but changed to look more interesting and grotesque. And when I first watched the episode on DVD, I wasn't really impressed by it overall. The episode really did have the feeling of just like, yeah, this isn't going to end as well as we thought it would have. And you can definitely see a lot of the animation was overall very weak at some points. But watching it again, while I still see this episode that doesn't play out as well as it should have, I think it's still a very funny episode. Those Homerisms that Silverman talked about appear in this very much as notable, very noticeable, and deliver some real good bits. The best one being Homer trying to pretend he's Mr. Burns at the post office.
Hello, my name is Mr. Burns. I believe you have a letter for me.
Okay, Mr. Burns. What's your first name?
I don't know. Great plan, Bart.
I will say this, though, the first half of the episode overall is the weakest part of the episode by far. It isn't until we see Bart send that letter where the comedy really starts to pick up and the episode becomes really funny. And all in all, I think this is an episode that definitely shows the signs that it took them a long time to put this together, and the finished product probably didn't meet the expectations they hoped for. Fox probably possibly showing why they pushed this to summer instead of picking a better episode to launch its summer lineup. But again, it paid off for them because people tuned in. But other than that, I would say this isn't one of the more memorable episodes of the early years of the show. Like I said, It's not until Bart and Homer realize they made a mistake by sending the letter and the amount of trouble they could get in, where it starts to get really funny at the end. It's an episode that probably could have worked better had the script been more well constructed, and as it stands, it's another episode that's worth checking out at some point, but I wouldn't go off rushing off to see it. And thus that brings us to the end of Season 2 of The Simpsons. A vast improvement over the last season, but just the beginning of bigger things to come, especially starting with the next season. And I'm not exaggerating by that because guess who they got to guest star in the Season 3 premiere?
Billie Jean is not my lover. She's just a girl who says that